Hello and welcome to Rise Above the Grind. I am your hostess, the Consultress, bringing you cutting edge conversations from entrepreneurs who have been there and done that. Today, my guest, James Feudo, has been in website design for a really long time. And not only does he do website design, he advocates for his clients. So it goes beyond the actual website and production that you see out there as your digital business card. He's out there connecting people to who they need to know to move their projects forward that may have nothing to do with web development, but everything to do with connecting people with the right resources. These are the people I love to hang out with. So, James, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm so psyched to be here.
Heck yeah! Listen, how long you been in web development?
I built my first website in 1996. If we do the math, it's like
Almost
almost
30
30
years?
years.
Wow,
Holy
man.
cow.
We're gonna
I
date
feel
this
old
person.
today. I was in preschool when I did that. No, just kidding.
Ah,
But
yeah,
like the
yeah,
fact that I was in grad school at the time, that's when I really feel old.
yeah. Listen, but this is kind of where we're looking at is, you've been through a few iterations of economy. You've been through a few iterations of
Mm,
what it takes to make it and to be a business over owner over the long term. So,
right.
tell us a little bit about how the word grind shows up in your universe. Well, how do you define it?
It's funny because to me, typically when I think of the word grind, I think of a lot of hours and um, you know, being everywhere that you can be at, and it's just like a lot of movement and a lot of time. But um, to me, it's always been not so much about watching the clock, but more about the commitment that you bring forward in everything you do. So, yeah, it is a lot of, time working, time in the office, going to events, but when you're there, you have to be present at these events. So a lot of times, like people go and I see them, they're really like literally there. They get their name tag, they get checked off on the list, and then they check out mentally and just kind of sit in the corner on their phone. um, so that's not really grinding. It's just kind of like showing up. It's to me, the grind is like you're involved, you're actively doing things, you're improving processes, you're being where you need to be, you're helping people when when you can and get your name out there.
Mm. I heard present and sharpening. Like to you, grind means like you're there, you're focused wherever you are, and you're there for business purposes. But what I heard from you is like when you check in and then you check out. Like that's not grind, that's floating. Like that's just going through the motions, perhaps. So in your definition of grind and being present and focused and willing to kind of open up and be all of who you are in those moments. That Now let's contrast that against like hustle and grind culture. Does this definition of grind for you, does it match up next to what you consider to be the hustle and grind culture of today's work environments?
I think it's about 50-50 where I see a lot of people come in and I'm really impressed with them. They'll walk into an event and they're, you know, making their rounds, doing what they've got to do the right way. And this is just kind of focusing on events for now, but then I see a lot of people that they come to events, they walk around and then they're gone in like 10, 15 minutes. So, being able to say that I'm here, 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 and here when you're not really there, um, there's a clear distinction. In fact, I was at an event recently. In fact, I was at a few events. I had three different people within a couple of weeks of each other paid me a really, really nice compliment, which was they're like, I love what you're doing. You're everywhere. And I'm like, really? You think? And they're like, yeah, I see your social media. I see you at events. I see that you're doing this. I see that you're doing that. And that to me, it's like, I think a lot of us often just like really look at it again as a checklist or just what we think is the way to do it. But we don't often look at how others perceive what we're doing and if they see the grind and the hustle and all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean everybody's different, but with regards to the grind, um I see a lot of people that they're really on a treadmill. They're running really fast, they're doing a lot of different things, but they're not, it's not strategic. So I think that's really where the key is. That's where it's missing a
I
lot of
see
folks.
that. So, um, when you contrast it with hustle and grind culture, I heard your definition of grind shift a little bit. It's like you're doing a lot of things, but are you getting a lot of results? And if those things don't match, then you're just grinding out, like you're burning out. The grind is not focused and present in that regard. It's more like I'm doing a million things because I heard I had to, or I think I need to,
Yeah.
and busy equals productive. And like that kind of thinking, I believe right now, especially in today's hybrid world, is one of those things that's on the chopping block. It's up for discussion. Let's turn it upside down, remove it from underneath the rock, and really kind of take a good hard look at what does productivity really mean. And I think that's the essence of what we're getting at here so far is like, you've been in business 30 years and you've seen where you've had to get focused, you've had to get present, and then other times when you've kind of been doing all the things and then not getting the results. So can you share a story, like a war story from the road when you had to make a pivot from that, like all over the place or doing too many things that weren't strategically focused, and how you knew to make the shift into more present focus?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You make me think of my to-do list. Where I'll go in and I'm like, holy smokes, there's like, there's a lot of different things going on in a lot of different areas. And um, I've gone in, there's actually two things that popped up when you mentioned that in my mind. And the first being that, yeah, I just sat down and did what I call a brain dump. And I'm just like, all right, what do I have to do? What am I thinking of? Just like write, capture it into a document and just like get it all from here onto, into my note-taking application. Um, so doing that was for me, it was a huge pivot because, you know, I then went in and I'm like, all right, what's similar? And I used it to just kind of pare down the list and then what's not important and then what's not, um, so it was kind of like bringing a lot of stuff to the chopping block and just being like, all right, don't need this, don't need this. So that was one pivot I did where it's like I learned that, I don't have to be everything to everybody. Um, we did, recently we pared down some of our clients. They weren't the right fit for us and we weren't the right fit for them. And, we had some conversations. It wasn't it's not always a fun thing, but like, sometimes we've been growing, and what they've really needed with their business isn't, you know, marketing so much as they need to focus on other aspects of it. So, we've advised them with, to do things a little bit differently. Like I've had, I had somebody, they're like, yeah, I got a website and it's like, well, what are you gonna do? You're not doing anything with it. And, you're paying for all of these services with it. Let's just, let's pare it down to what you need right now until your business grows and then you can start re-enabling all these services and things. Because a lot of times people do that. It's like they invest a ton of money in either technology or in other things to help them with their business, and they really don't need them at that point in time. So that was another thing we did. Um, and then we've shifted our priorities and our focus and into who we're targeting as we grow because people that we were looking with 4 years ago, let's say, people that we were working with back then, we still have most of our clients from back then. But now we have all these additional things that we can offer people. So, we're still able to service those people, but then now it opens up more doors for other types of businesses that we couldn't service back then, but now can. And the nice thing, I always say, yeah, I overuse this phrase that a rising tide lifts all boats. Some of these clients that we did work for like 3, 4 years ago will reach out and they're like, oh, I had an idea and I'm like, oh yeah, we now have a tool that does this, or we have this service that does that. And it's like, we can just quickly add it in. So it's an adventure. Technology is always changing, always evolving. So you kind of have to like that's where it's like, I when you mention pivot, it's like I almost feel like we pivot every month because there's new things out there and
Hmm.
there's new ways to help people and that's, so
And
I
staying
probably have a million
present
stories.
and,
Yeah.
and and staying present to
Yeah.
where there's opportunity to shift focus or distill focus. What I heard you say is, I looked at my to-do list, I wrote everything down, and then I was able to once it was all out there, I was able to categorize and collect things and realize where the majority focus is and put everything else either on the back burner or take it off the stove. Like that's one way to stop quote unquote grinding when you're doing all the things but the results aren't happening, is determining where is my time being spent. Your attention is currency, and then deciding where are you going to get value for paying attention. And I love that you were like, not only do we do this for ourselves internal to our infrastructure into your team and your business, but also, your clients are now having ideas of what more they want to do or what else they want to do. And, when we were in the green room talking a little bit about, how you show up for your clients, it's not only to provide this, website as a finished product, but it is
Right.
to become an advocate and a working collaborator to figure out, how can we help you? And by the way, if you come to me with the desire to put a widget on your site, we're going to have a real discussion around what's the value of it? Is this necessary? And by the way, have you thought of what results this is going to bring to you? Like having a business owner who is results focused, help you focus in your business on your results is so super valuable.
Very, very true.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm spreading some shine on you because it's not every day that you get to figure out who people are in their business and kind of what their core values represented to me when you said the grind is being focused and present and then being able to figure out where results are coming from. You're not just doing that in delivering the service of producing a website. You're doing that
Right.
becoming a strategic partner for your
Yeah.
clients and for the people that you know. And so, in terms of your clients now, I want to just like take the spotlight and shine it over to them a little bit. This shows up for them, it sounds like too.
It does. And getting, like the point you mentioned and what we talked about earlier today was that, we had a client that he's moving his business across town and had some issues with City Hall that he just, he needed someone to assist him with trying to understand what the processes were. So I was able to make some phone calls both to people in, town, city government, um, as well as like he needed an architect and a contractor. So I was able to make some calls out there for him as well and, give him a couple references for people he could talk with. Has, as you said, it has like nothing to do with web design. But it's called it, I say we have a family. I'm Italian. To me, everything's about family. And our clients, our team members, our community partners, they're all family. So like, if somebody in my family comes to me and they're like, I need help with this and I know someone that can help them, I'm gonna go and do that. Um, it doesn't I don't need to be able to invoice them to,
Yay.
you
Yeah, it
know,
doesn't just, the buck doesn't stop here. It's like, no, 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 no,
yeah,
no. The rest of me is off limits. Only my web design brain is yours.
yeah,
And I think that's kind of a myth that we continue to have to bust being business owners and being out there networking in business because business is personal. If people don't understand who you are, there's no way they're going to be able to buy what you offer. So when I talk to people, and one of the things that I'm really passionate about is helping people line up more of who they are and how they talk about their business, because that's really what people are asking when they ask, what do you do? They really are asking you a very trite and overused phrase for like, I want to get to know you. But how many people walk up to you at a networking event and go, I want to get to know you? Zero, none. But that's actually the question that they're asking. So being intentional about, this is who I am and why I love what I do. And then we
yeah,
can talk about the what and the how, but people buy who you are. And so if anybody who's listening is interested, that I talk more about philosophically learning who people are first so that you can accelerate through the process of know, like, and trust and be like, okay, I trust you who you are. I know you're showing up authentically and I can bank on that because it feels natural, or, something's sketchy about that guy. I don't think it doesn't feel right. When you hear people
right,
say it doesn't feel right, it just means that their words aren't matching up with who they are. And
yeah,
so, for those of you out there who've heard me say this and preach this, like business is the number one development tool on the planet. And for being more courageous in your marketing, you must talk about who you are so people can like almost fall in love with you really quickly and be like, oh, what services do you offer? I'd love to collaborate. Like that's the way business is going. Would you agree?
Right. I mean, you probably heard the phrase people like to do business with people they like. You go into a car dealership and you see the salespeople walking around, and maybe one of them when you come in isn't very friendly, but like somebody else offers you a water. Can I show you something? And then, it's that is something where a lot of times people they don't really think about that. They're just so focused. So many things that you just said, Alyssa. Oh my goodness, like, networking events and just how people don't really understand that one concept. It's like, they're not interested in building a relationship. They're just like, boom, I want to sell. I want to give you my pitch. And then now that I've given you my pitch, I've got your business card. I'm going to add you to my drip campaign, and you're going to be receiving emails for the rest of your life from me. Where, like the equivalent, I like to say that networking and dating are very similar, right? Um, if people dated the way they network, they'd be just like going up to someone at a bar and saying, "Hey, let's get married," or "Hey, let's go." It's like that's the equivalent of what a lot of folks do. So it's something when I'm out there, when I'm being present, when I'm out doing the grind, I'm very conscious of that. And it's just, I try to listen for problems that people have or areas that they need help with. And again, it's not necessarily just stuff related to things I can invoice them for. It's, do maybe they're looking to get get their car repaired. And I'm like, oh, there's this auto shop here. And no, they're not a client of ours, but they do great work.
Mhm.
Um, it's so many different things like that people just need, they just need to be like they need the connection, especially people that are new to the community, whether it's online and virtual or, locally. So absolutely.
And so I want to just appreciate you for being who you are in your business and being willing to go that extra mile. So now that you've heard of the amazingness of James Feudo, where can people go to connect with you to learn more?
JVF.com is our main website, and it's nice. It's only 3 letters in the domain, so it's easy to remember. Or they can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me all over the place on social, but I'm most active on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. So you heard it here. Go seek out James Feudo at JVF, V in the middle, like virtual, JVF.com. And so thanks a million for being here. For those of you listening to the broadcast, stay tuned. We've got another amazing episode coming up right after this. Don't go away.